Tension on deck.
Hey, good evening, Ron. How's everything? How you been?
Doing well, doing well. Your background has changed.
It has, yeah, a little bit of New York in me today. So, and I brought some nice weather with me. So there you go. No charge.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's a beautiful day out. Very, very warm. Hopefully, it's here now, and you know, it doesn't drop down after 2 days back to 50 degrees like it did last week.
Yes.
You know, but a lot going on again this week that we're going to talk about. Some interesting stuff. Lead story is going to be obviously, the NYPD chief who let some shots go up in Rockland County during an off-duty incident. We'll talk about Deputy Chief Ben Gurley, what we've learned about the incident since, how it first came out, and how the investigation works. And we'll talk about some, off-duty behavior and give our perspective and our advice on how people should be handling things off-duty. It's an unfortunate situation, and we'll get into it. And we're going to talk about, I'll call it unusual press conference, because we've always heard, right, no matter what's going on, that there are no credible threats at this time, right? Meanwhile, we all know that with everything going on in the world, there's always credible threats out there. They're just not telling us about it. And for Commissioner Tisch to come forward and to actually say that she's never seen, like a threat environment the way it is today, and being fearful of actually drone attacks. So we'll get into that. But what's your initial thoughts on this whole thing?
On Gurley?
Yeah, we'll start with
Yeah.
Well, actually, before we get into the story, let's just back up one quick second and just take a moment to acknowledge this past Monday was Memorial Day. It's a time to honor, remember, and never forget. And we talked about this last year. The difference between Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and Armed Forces Day. Memorial Day on Monday was a day of remembrance. And I know you mentioned at the end of one of your videos that it's a time for us to reflect and give thanks to all of those service members who gave their life in the protection of this country, and to also remember and honor their legacies and their families, the Gold Star families. Veterans Day is a day to honor and thank all those who have served in the past and are veterans of the armed forces. And Armed Forces Day is to thank and pay tribute to all those who are currently serving. So we want to pay tribute to all those members who have fallen, to give us the freedom and the ability to do what we're doing right now, Rob, to do what we're doing right now in retirement, start up a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at it, you're like, unfortunately, we've lost some, active members in the NYPD, during military operations. So, I always fall back to what my son said a couple of years ago. I think I said it last year at the same time when I would say to him, you know, he was a Marine or is a Marine, right? You're always a Marine. I said, "Hey, have a happy Memorial Day," and he goes, "Hey, Dad, I'm not dead yet." I
Yeah.
said, "Oh, sorry." I said, "Sorry, man." He goes, "The Memorial Day is for the guys that gave their lives," and he's right, right? So Veterans Day, you know, Armed Forces Days, those are for the guys, you know. But you know, even on Memorial Day, you know, we thank the veterans, which we should do all the time, right? I see guys all the time, especially I see guys with the Vietnam veteran hats, you know, and I thank them because I know when they came back, they really got, you know, shitted on. Nobody really respected them, and they served. They served for our country, like you said, for our freedom. So, you know, to all the you know, the family members of Gold Star, you know, family members and the people that have survived. You know, my heart goes out to you, and I thank you. I thank you for your loved ones that gave their lives for our freedom. You know, so that we can be happy and live free. And I, you know, I also thank all the the veterans and the current military for their service too. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was,
And let's not forget that we have to honor and remember them even on Memorial Day, because a lot of these um, veterans that gave their lives, they were with in theater, you know, in times of conflict. They survived and others did not. So
yeah,
along with honoring the family members of these Gold Star families, we honor the fellow service members as well.
definitely.
And then we had the 181st anniversary, or birthday, if you would, of the NYPD, established May 23rd, 1845. So, congratulations, I guess. Happy birthday to the NYPD that we love to this day. Um, Great honor and tradition. And, you know, part of the reason we do the podcast is in the hopes of returning it that way.
You know, and when I came on in 1987, I think there were still some chiefs that were still from the original dates. At least they look like they were. But yeah,
Yeah. So happy birthday to the NYPD. And then one final shout out to start off. I have to give a shout out to my uh, firstborn, my oldest son, Nick. Happy 28th birthday tomorrow, buddy. Love you, and have a great day. I'll be with you tomorrow, but happy birthday.
yeah. Happy birthday, Nick.
So let's get to it. Let's bring up the first topic, right? NYPD Assistant Chief is involved in an off duty shooting incident in the suburbs. So what happens, right? Monday, this comes out on Monday or Sunday, right? And it just very basic. A high-ranking NYPD officer was involved in an off-duty shooting incident in the suburban Rockland County. Assistant Chief Benjamin Gurley, who was involved in a confrontation with a man in Haverstraw, New York, Sunday night. According to police sources, the town is about 30 miles north of the Bronx. One single shot was fired. It's not clear by who, hitting no one. Sources said Gurley is a 26-year veteran, and he's the head of the newly created Bronx North Command. Formerly, he was the Bronx, all of the Bronx. He was the borough commander for all of the Bronx before they split it last week, north and south. The Haverstraw Police Department is leading the investigation, while the shooting is also being probed by the NYPD's Force Investigation and Internal Affairs Bureau. And that's all we got. And then in the New York Post, there was an article, and the headline stayed the same, right? NYPD Assistant Chief allegedly fired stray shot during off-duty altercation with daughter's boyfriend. And the article, when I went to cut it up for the show to get some quotes out, the article had been updated because since the incident, I guess more information has come out, or more information was garnered from the Force Investigation Unit, Internal Affairs, in conjunction with Haverstraw and the Rockland County DA. So more information came out, and we're going to put up what the Haverstraw PD had to say in their statement in the moment. But I found it interesting that the New York Post updated the article, right? Because the initial article, the thing I wanted to get out of the initial article was that the NYPD reported that there was no change in duty status at the time of the initial investigation. So now that article doesn't say that, right? Now the article says, an off-duty senior NYPD officer allegedly fired an accidental stray shot in altercation with his daughter's friend, not boyfriend anymore, in Rockland County on Sunday, according to law enforcement sources. Assistant Chief Ben Gurley, who oversees Bronx North Command, was involved in a physical altercation, right? We didn't hear the physical part initially, with a man accused of harassing his daughter in Haverstraw. Late Sunday night, the man is purportedly a school friend of Gurley's daughter, according to sources. But then it goes on, during the heated confrontation, the police chief allegedly fired an accidental shot. So now they're identifying Gurley as the one who actually let the round go. No one was struck, but Gurley injured his arm during the fight and will wear a sling while he heals. Haverstraw police responded to the shooting, is leading the investigation. The NYPD's force investigation and internal affairs are separate. Sources told the Post that Gurley was placed on modified duty and reassigned after the shooting. So that was not part of the initial article because there was no discipline. There was no any kind of, for those who aren't familiar, modified assignment is having your gun and your shield removed for disciplinary reasons. And that wasn't the case in the beginning. So
there's numerous things come into play here, right? So we talk about off-duty conduct, especially when you're personally involved, which we all know is somewhat of a no-no. If you're personally involved, and understandably, he's defending his daughter. So I'm gonna put that out right from the get-go. If you're defending a family member, your wife, your daughter, if you're a female officer, your husband, your son, whatever, I understand how you can get emotionally involved and want to take police action. Is it advisable? Unless it's a real threat at the current time, like a physical altercation or somebody's going to assault you with a weapon or anything else, yes, then it absolutely is important to do right away. If it's a verbal dispute or pushing and shoving, sometimes it's best to kind of pull yourself back out of it and call 911 like they tell you to do, right? And then we talk about, you talked about the article with the Post and how it wasn't originally, portrayed as somebody had an injury and we didn't know whose shots were fired. So then do we say that there's some sort of, cover up? Is there some sort of white shirt immunity that they're trying to, take care of them or whatever? So, I mean, there's quite a few things here that we can speak about. And then the last thing we talk about when we say accidental, to me, that's like all of a sudden that's the catchphrase. I've never seen, although I did have one incident where there was a sniper rifle that had like a 2-pound trigger pull that we were at the tree lighting ceremony. And one of the detectives was trying to drop the magazine out of the sniper rifle and the gun went off. So, well, that's what we were told. But we did a history of the gun, and the gun had a history of malfunctioning like that, where it was just shot. I mean, it's clearly a low trigger pull. When you think about a 2-pound trigger pull, and what they did to our Glocks when they put a 14-pound trigger pull, you needed a rock to pull it back. So, I mean, could it happen? Yeah, but usually with the service weapons that we have, the strong. I know they went to a lighter trigger pull, but the stronger trigger pulls are hard. And an accidental to me is almost like the gun's been taken out of the holster and then a round let go. So yes, it could be accidental, but then I have to ask, why is the gun out in the first place then? Especially if it's some sort of physical altercation. And from what we've seen on all the information that we got, there was no other weapons. Like the individual didn't have a weapon that confronted Gurley's daughter. So I'm not sure. So and like just to real quick to jump in the chat right there, like 20 and out says you don't pull your firearm unless you're planning on using it, right? And obviously you never put your finger on the trigger. It's not an accident. So, you know, maybe suffice for the weapon, scuffle for the weapon. Absolutely, it could have been definitely a scuffle for the weapon. But you know, we're going with what we got right now. So, and that's the reason why you don't want to be. That's what another reason why I talked about when I first started was if you're going to be personally involved and you're armed, unless there's a reason for you to get involved and not pull yourself out of that situation and call 911, especially when you're outside, you know, off duty and stuff. I mean, that's the first thing, you know, you want to do. So, I mean, I know I threw a lot in there, and you know, there's, but I mean, it calls for a further discussion between us because we've handled off-duty incidences, you know, so, and we know about off-duty conduct, you know, so it's important.
Yeah, there's a lot there to unpack, and I think there's a couple of different conversations that are within that one statement there, like you said. And you know, someone just messaged me and said, you know, how could you even be talking about this without having all of the facts? Well, understandable. We don't like to make assumptions here. We're not like another show on another network now that's no longer with the finest Unfiltered that likes to, you know, put out all rumors, innuendo, make accusations based on their credible sources, and things like that. You know, there's information that we received early this morning that other people put out as fact, or no, put out as rumors. We don't feel that that's responsible, and so you know we don't do that. What we are doing here is that there was an incident that was reported in the newspaper. The incident did happen. We do know that Chief Gurley, who I know personally, I worked with him, spoken about him in the past on different shows, right? Very competent guy. I like him. I liked working with him. And, you know, he was the Bronx Borough Commander. And then when the police department split north and south last week, he took over the north part of the Bronx. So he's not new as a borough commander. He's been a borough commander for a few years, and is experienced as an executive. However, there are facts that we do know, right, that have been released, and we're gonna put up the Haverstraw press release, which doesn't give all the context, right, but it gives a lot more context. We do, you know, we'll talk maybe about what Sal had put out in his post, but
You could Ron, also add in the finest message, right? So I mean,
right. Well, we have that, right? So
right.
you know, we know for a fact that, you know, right here, that he was transferred and designated, right, from Patrol Borough Bronx North to the Housing Bureau and designated as the executive officer. And it also notes that modified assignment is continued. Now, prior to this being released or this being published by the police department, there was no mention the fact that Chief Gurley had been modified, which is a disciplinary change in duty status, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between modified assignment and a non-disciplinary removal of firearms. Non-disciplinary removal of firearms means that maybe you're involved in some type of, you know, domestic incident at home where you're going through some issues or have some problems or whatever, and we want to take your firearms just to make sure you're okay, and you get checked out with a counselor or you know, psychologist before your guns are returned to you. That's non-disciplinary, right? So basically a timeout. When you're placed on modified assignment, you don't have your gun or your shield, right? In New York, we call the badge a shield. And so that's removed for disciplinary purposes. So we do know that that is in fact what happened, is that whatever the initial investigation by the Force Investigation Division and Internal Affairs Bureau unveiled, that the department took disciplinary action against him. So we do have enough facts to speak on off-duty incidences, off-duty safeguards that people should try to take. We don't know all the facts. We don't know exactly what happened and how his daughter was being harassed, and if it was an imminent thing that was going on or something that was going on over a longer period of time. We don't know these facts, and we're not speaking on those facts. So what we're going to speak on are the facts that we do know, as well as just general recommendations from two executives on how you should be handling yourself while off duty or involved in something in a personal way, because it's always looked at with a much stronger magnifying glass when you're personally involved in something, as if you just came upon an incident and maybe you were taking police action. Whenever you're personally involved, the department's going to look at it a lot deeper, a lot closer.
Right, and he was also administratively transferred, so that's not a good thing. Whenever you're administratively transferred, so you're basically done, transferred because they feel you're not competent enough to handle the current position you're in, and maybe because of what's happening or whatever he whatever he did. So I mean, you see the admin guide there, and it specifically calls for, mostly you see that admin transfers is for to permit the commanding officer to transfer members who are not suited for or are unable to perform at a satisfactory level of efficiency in present assignment. So usually it's the CO that does that to police officers or whatever. But here you see probably, I'm going to assume that the chief of patrol through the chief of department, probably coming down from police commissioner, said, no, we're going to administratively transfer. Now, as the XO of the housing bureau, right? So you have a 3-star spot, which is the chief of the housing bureau. And as the XO, he's a 2-star. You can have a 2-star. I've seen 2 stars, I think, who is it? There was a couple 2-stars already there. I don't know if Eddie Delatorre might have been the 2-star there, or I think somebody else was. But it's not totally uncommon to have a 2-star there. But he's going from the CO spot, which is a pretty important position, especially with the new split of the Bronx, now to being XO. So it is a little bit of a step down. And like you said, like an I-09 is not for any type of disciplinary. So we know that a modification is. So when you modify somebody, there's an anticipation that based on the investigation, there will be some sort of, administrative trial or charges and specifications, as we normally call it, for some sort of discipline. So, I mean, it still has to be investigated. So, you put somebody on modified because you want to wait and see how the investigation pans out. So I don't necessarily know that Haverstraw is going to be very cooperative with the NYPD. They don't have to be. It is their jurisdiction, so they can hold off on releasing information of what they learn to the Internal Affairs Bureau and to the Force Investigation Division. But I think at this point they may have already told them some stuff, So I think QC Beast is telling me, I think Camadana, who became a 3-star chief, and Delatorre were both XOs of the Housing Bureau. So it's not uncommon as a 2-star, but you don't want to get dumped there when you're the CO of a borough and get dumped there. So
I think Al Matarazzo may have had his 2nd star while he was there as well. I'm not sure if he got that in Manhattan South or not.
Right.
In the Detective Bureau, he may have had it already. I don't recall. But yeah, it's possible. And again, like I said in the post, that this position is a position he held as a 1-star chief. That's where I worked with. I worked with Ben when he was an inspector, and he was placed in the Housing Bureau as the executive officer, and then he was promoted to 1-star. He was promoted to 1-star chief while there, and then eventually he was promoted to 2-star and got his position as the Bronx Borough Commander.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, the administrative transfer is a punitive transfer, and I think that's the the main point of it all, right? An administrative transfer is a punitive transfer. It happens sometimes when you see someone who's not performing up to standards, and you've tried everything as a commander to get that person to do their job effectively and professionally, and they just they don't come around, right? They don't see the light. They don't do what they're supposed to do. They're whatever in their duties. They're not doing what needs to get done. Also, administrative transfers happen a lot of times when you get involved in some type of disciplinary matter, and they don't feel that you staying in the position that you're in is beneficial for the police department because you did something wrong. We got to move you. We can't keep you there. You can't keep you as the borough commander with no gun, no shield. When we're investigating something that may turn into either criminal or future punitive punitive actions. So
Yeah.
Two things on the chat. I just want to correct. Detective Nolan has said several times that you can be modified and still have your gun and your shield, and that's absolutely not the case. If you're placed on modified assignment is a punitive action by the police department. You don't have a gun, you don't have a shield. That's modified assignment. If you have a non-disciplinary removal of firearms, you can still keep your shield, but you won't have a firearm, and all your firearms are removed. So, not a big one. And then, Pat Donahue was saying that the article specifically stated that the firearm was removed from the waistband, a holster. It doesn't say anything about a holster, so we don't know. Again, that's one of the things that we look at when we conduct an investigation. An off-duty, Rob and I have handled hundreds, if not thousands, over our executive career, off-duty incidences. I was an executive in Queens for a decade, and we covered Long Island. So whenever we had the duty, either a captain or an inspector, you're inevitably going to wind up with some type of off-duty incident. One of the things you look at is if a firearm's involved is type of holster they were wearing, if they were wearing a holster, and how the firearm was secured and everything like that. So that's something that they'll look at. They'll look at, was the firearm holstered, and was it in the holster? Was it a proper holster? Was the holster working, properly? The article didn't say who removed the firearm. So this is, there's so many uncertainties that we're not going to speculate on. But yeah,
So I'm also being told right now that the incident happened in a ShopRite parking lot, and I don't know whether Haverstraw or our firearms investigation division has the video. So they actually have the video of the incident. So we're, as it progresses, we'll know more. So yeah, and Joy Luz 156 says administrative transfer, from what I understand, kills your career, and it pretty much does, because it's listed on your central personnel index, and it's always a question whether you're going for an interview or going somewhere else. Why did that person get administratively transferred? And unless it's something where, like, let's say they transferred you because they thought, or they modified you and then they administratively transferred because they thought there was going to be a problem, but you were later cleared, then it really wouldn't have an adverse effect because you could justify it and explain why. So the fact that he was I also heard rumors that he was possibly going to be arrested by Haverstraw. So that's something I also heard. So I can't confirm that. That's just a rumor. So I'm just throwing it out there. So I mean, there's lots of things, and I know 92 Charlie had mentioned, what do we think that Haverstraw called operations, or Ben Gurley called operations? I mean, technically it's Ben's responsibility when he's involved in an off-duty incident to make the notification to the operations division. But I wouldn't put it past Haverstraw or another law enforcement agency also calling, just to make sure that the call is done. So they're responsible to make that notification. So especially if there's an injury and there's a firearm discharge, I would have hoped that Ben would have called right away after everything calmed down. So, but that's as tidbits come in, we can't confirm or deny it right now. It's all speculation. But like you said earlier, the facts of the modification, which you said, correct. I mean, your gun and shield is missing. The only advantage to being modified is that you still get to keep your health benefits and you're still working, right? So a suspension, you're going to lose your gun, your shield, and you're going to lose all your health benefits and everything else while you're during that suspension, as well as your family. So you never really want to, suspend anybody unless you're absolutely 100% certain that the person is guilty of that. So, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of things coming in, as we speak. So
yeah, I mean, even as
yeah,
we speak, we're both getting text messages from people with information that they've
yeah,
heard, and they have contacts upstate, and but we're not going to put that out, because until it gets published, that's when we'll speak about it. But yeah, it's listen, again, here's the let me bring this up on my screen here so I can really read it because it's small. But this is what the Haverstraw Town Police Department released, right? This was, I guess, for their press release. On Sunday, May 24th, 2026, at approximately 7:45 p.m., Town of Haverstraw Police Department received a report of a fight in progress in the parking lot of ShopRite located, in Ramapo. Upon arrival, officers encountered two adult individuals on the Roslyn Road side of the building. Both individuals sustained minor non-life-threatening injuries during the confrontation and were transported to local hospital for evaluation. Both parties were treated and released. The preliminary investigation revealed that one of the individuals involved, an off-duty member of the New York City Police Department, had a legally owned handgun at the time of the altercation. During the confrontation, the firearm was removed from the individual's waistband, resulting in one round being discharged from the weapon. The discharge round did not strike either party or any bystanders. During the investigation, it was further revealed that the dispute may have stemmed from the other male individual allegedly harassing the New York City Police Department member's daughter. It should be noted that the daughter and the other male involved are acquaintances only and are not, nor have they ever been, in any form a domestic relationship. So they're just, they're covering their bases that this is not a domestic incident, which, as people in law enforcement know, that kicks in a lot of mandatory type of arrests and situations. But they're saying there was never any type of domestic relations. The Town of Haverstraw Police Department is actively investigating this incident in coordination with the Rockland County District Attorney's Office. And then it says, anybody with information can call. So that's.
and I also heard that the Rockland DA did not interview Gurley yet. So and the Rockland DA recommended that Gurley gets an attorney. So I mean, this is a slow. I mean, this just happened, right? So I mean, it's going to take a little bit of time, as the incidents, unfold and more information is reported. So you can speculate, a lot of things, but I mean, I like to stick to the facts, right? So we know he's modified, he's administratively transferred, and there's always that presumption of innocence, but I mean, there's a lot of indication that things are going wrong. Like if I was in fact, and I don't know if it'd be kind of a weird thing, right? If you were the duty inspector and I was the duty chief, and all of a sudden we got to make a call to modify a 2-star chief, that would be our call. I mean, I'm sure we're going to get a call from the 3-star chief saying, "What the fuck are you guys doing and what's going on?" But you would have to do it if you know that an off-duty incident where he let a round go, whether accidentally or it was during a confrontation. So to me, the accidental goes out the window. An accidental for me is when we've had them, right, where people forget there's a round, and it's a sad state of affairs where I see guys do this. They rack the gun and then drop the magazine, forgetting that there's still a round in the chamber. Yes. And then boom, so I mean,
that's prevalent with the Glock.
Yeah. So I mean, and there's that that's a problem in itself. But that to me is an accidental, right? But if you're pulling out a gun while you're in the middle of a confrontation, then it's unless there was some sort of struggle over the gun, then it's different. So, but we also know that that Gurley apparently had some sort of injury. We don't know what the extent of that injury, and I'm also hearing that the other individual might have had an injury too. So, and like you said, Haverstraw PD is saying there's no relationship. So, is this a straight up stalking case where the daughter is being stalked and finally confronted? I mean, it's not like, from what it looks like, if it happened in a ShopRite parking lot, it's not where the individual actually came to Gurley's house, or unless maybe she works there, maybe she doesn't. I don't know, but to me, just a word of advice for guys that are off duty or whatever, and there's something happened. And like I said earlier, if there's an imminent threat, do what you got to do. It's your family. You have to protect them. But if you can take your time, call 911.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Listen, there's a lot of unknowns. You feel for him, like you said right in the opening. You feel for him that his daughter is being harassed. We don't know what the extent of the harassment is. The mom had made public replies on social media that he had to protect his family and his daughter, and that comes first, and he'll be vindicated. So we don't know. I see it. We don't know that what the actual incident that precipitated it is. And that's something that will probably come out, like we talked about in the thumbnail. Will there be transparency? I think there is so far. I think that the Haverstraw Police Department, maybe did they get backed into making that statement? Because initially it didn't seem like much was coming, if anything was coming of it, right? They were both allowed to go to the hospital. They were both treated and released. There's no newspaper report, and the Haverstraw Police Department's press release doesn't state that there were any arrests, even though it was reported on another show that he was arrested, but it's not being publicly reported. And I don't know why that is. I mean, are they using him? It's possible. Like there's so many different twists and turns that this could take, left, right, sideways. But until we know more of the facts, and if the facts that are rumored that we're hearing are true, it gets ugly, and it's not going to bode well for his future.
Yeah, the other thing is, when you talk about transparency, right? And there's a big reason why there's probably going to be transparency with this one, and that's because it's another outside agency. If this happened within the city limits, I could see where there might not be any transparency. They might, wait it out. And what they normally do, right? They table it, and you don't hear about it for years or whatever. And then eventually something comes down, whether it's a negotiated plea or they drop everything. But here you're stuck with the fact that it happened in Haverstraw. Now, Haverstraw PD is not going to jeopardize themselves to save somebody, which can lead to lawsuits, right? So you have a smaller department up there. They don't want lawsuits. They don't want problems. So I think they're going to be a little more transparency. And when I give them kudos for what they did, putting out that press release, right? So they probably have heard rumblings about what's going on and what's not going on. And they put out a press release to try to kind of quell that in people's rumors and everything else. So I think I give them a lot of credit for that they did it. And I think there will be a little transparency. I mean, will the department, hopefully he doesn't get arrested, unless obviously he deserves it. But if he deserves it, but if he doesn't, then I could see where our department would kind of like let it die a natural death, and then who knows what happens with Ben, but you hear rumors about, he could retire, right? That's the other option for him. He has 26 years on the job. He can retire right now if he wants. There's nothing saying that he can't, as an administrator, even as a result of administrative transfer, he's still eligible to retire. So, I mean,
Right.
could he retire and not get the good guy letter because he's modified? That could happen, but you'd rather do that, in my opinion. If he's going to get arrested, you'd rather want to retire than get suspended, and then you can't retire because then you're waiting for the charge and specifications and everything else, or you can retire and then lose the good guy letter or whatever. So I mean, there's a lot out there, a lot of stuff. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to unravel, a lot of unknowns, which like I said, we don't like to deal in unknowns, but just again, unfortunate incident. He's coming to the aid of his daughter. We don't know what precipitated the altercation. We have no idea what precipitated the altercation, who was an aggressor in the altercation, why the firearm was removed from the waistband, how we're calling it accidental, and somebody had in the chat also,
Yeah, I'm just reading that. Matt Fiziano. That's great what he says. Yeah.
Right. So accidental discharge is a mechanical failure, like you spoke about with the possible sniper rifle, right? An unintentional discharge is discharged prematurely or in negligence. So yeah. So accident, I don't know that the NYPD differentiates the two.
No, they don't. No. They should.
You're right. They should. They should. But when they look at all firearms discharges, they look at the reasonableness and the justification for each round that's fired. So if an officer fires 5 rounds, they actually will designate each round that's fired and then say, this was justified, this was justified, this was justified, this was not, this was within department guidelines, they don't use the word justified, they use within department guidelines or outside department guidelines, right? And then if it's outside department guidelines, it could be anything from training to discipline, right? To termination, depending on the egregiousness of the outside guidelines discharge. So, they'll look at that and, how the firearm was discharged. The gun will be taken. If Haverstraw doesn't have it as evidence, the gun will be taken by the NYPD Force Investigation Unit and it will be tested at the range, right? To make sure that it wasn't a mechanical failure. And they'll go, and this will all be brought in to the case that moves forward, the disciplinary case, because obviously we can say with all certainty that there's a disciplinary case in process because his duty status was changed and he was administratively transferred. So the job is looking at it as if he violated department guidelines in whatever way, whether it's possible pending criminal implications from Haverstraw, because they're working in conjunction with them, whether it's just their initial investigation into the removal of the firearm from its holster or the waistband and the discharge itself, whatever the case may be, the job is saying by their actions thus far, especially against a 2-star chief, that this is definitely going down the disciplinary roadway.
And if memory serves me correct, I don't remember ever a 2-star chief involved in such a thing. I know there was a 1-star chief, right? I think that was Robert Wheeler III that got involved, I think, in Baltimore on a discharge, right? I think there were some people breaking into his house or whatever and let a couple rounds go and never reported it. Right. Yeah, and then came back for the NYPD, and then Baltimore called up and says, "Hey, what about this guy that let a round go down here?" So, I mean, Yeah, so I think it'll be investigated. I hope it will. So, to put, remember, you pull out your firearm, like it was talked about earlier in the chat. It was expected that you're going to use your firearm, right? So, I mean, and then we're taught that right on the street. That doesn't matter whether you're off duty or on duty. Your firearm is used as the defense against a deadly weapon. It could be a knife, it could be a bat, or it could be another gun. But I think that you have to understand that off duty, which you will get scrutinized even harder. You better make sure that I mean, how many times did you read about in the patrol guide or the lesson plans when you were a rookie cop? They told you call 911, right? Call 911. And like I said earlier, and I know Marlon spoke, jumped in on it too. It should be an imminent threat, right? It has to be an imminent threat. So, if this had been, and I also had heard that this had been an ongoing problem with this individual harassing and stalking Ben's daughter. So if that's the case, I would hope that there were other reports filed. There was things being done, because you can, identify somebody. You can get an order of protection, which we all know is as worthless as the ink that it's printed on, but it is a start. It's a start in the process. So, but there's things that can be done, and you need to do all of those things before you want to go and confront somebody. Again, unless it's that imminent threat, and I understand. I think every father, every mother, brother, sister across the board is going to understand that if something's going on and your family members like that, you're gonna take immediate action. But any other time, you need to step back and evaluate it. And you think when it is, the knowledge and the level of a two-star chief would understand that, because I would hope that Ben, coming up through the ranks, probably should have investigated a few of these things off duty, and that kind of makes your mind even think even more so off duty, right? So I mean, there's a lot to unfold here, and we'll see what happens.
When you're personally involved, though, a lot of times,
yeah,
you're not
you get the blinders,
clearly.
right?
Yep. Listen, we both have daughters.
Yep.
Depending on the severity of what's going on, the imminency of what's going on.
It's perceived imminency, right?
It's how you're going to handle it. And the statement made by the wife, the child's mother, that the daughter was being harassed by some type of psycho. I forget the exact words. I can look at it. And I'm not going to bring it up. I'm just going to look at it, right? There's a psycho stalking our daughter that no one is doing anything about. Please pray for us. That's in part
right.
What she had said. So, which leads me to believe that it is an ongoing incident, and maybe the Haverstraw Police Department or whatever other municipality that this involves was not being as aggressive maybe as they should have, that they felt that there was a threat and there was danger to their daughter. And from what she's saying, nobody was doing anything about it. So maybe they tried to get an order of protection. Maybe they were denied. Maybe they were told that it's not aggravated harassment if he's calling her or texting her, because like in New York, right? In New York City, they're not going to take they don't take aggravated harassment, which is a misdemeanor anymore, unless a physical threat is made. Right? Just bothering somebody is just bothering somebody, Then there's the stalking statutes and things like that, but then there has to be, an ongoing behavioral pattern that adds up, right? So Special Hagen is asking, is it standard for an MOS to be carrying at a shopping center on a Sunday night when he's clearly off duty? Gurley had several CCRB complaints of abuse of authority. I'm not worried about CCRB complaints. I don't hold a lot of credibility to CCRB complaints unless I see the incidents myself, because we've talked about it. We've seen it firsthand. We've seen it through videos. We've seen it through city council meetings that the CCRB is not a fair agency. We talked about it in I believe it was last week's show, how you have the investigators from CCRB who are completely biased against the police department in their social media posts, and in their lives, and a supervisor from the CCRB doubling down, saying it's great to see how cool his, coworkers are by this being put out in the newspaper. So the CCRB part about that, Special Hagen, zero credence to it. And again, how many of those CCRB complaints were actually substantiated? And then again, even if they're substantiated, doesn't really mean as much, because you can have a substantiated complaint and be found not guilty in the trial room, and the substantiated complaint remains substantiated. So it's not a fair process. But as far as your first part of the comment, is it standard? It's standard. It's recommended that no matter where you go, if you have the ability to carry a firearm for your safety and the safety of others in the world that we currently live in, by all means, everybody should be doing it, whether it's Sunday night at Stop and Shop, Sunday morning at church or synagogue or anywhere else, Saturday at synagogue, wherever you go. I recommend that if you legally can carry a firearm, you should be, to not only protect yourself, but protect others around you. Because we have seen all over the world that anything could happen at any time, anywhere.
Yeah, I'll also add to it because Marlon brings a good point up at 1752, the next one down. He says, "I'm willing to bet Gurley doesn't practice drawing his firearm much, even in his free time. I think it's essential to practicing trigger discipline." And I'll agree 100%. Why? Because we all know about the executive cycle in the range. And a lot of executives don't go to the range. They just get a paper signed and said, you attended the range, and guess what? You passed with flying colors, and they didn't fire one shot. Now, I'm not saying I never did that, because I have, but as I got into ESU, it changed a lot for me because we did a lot of training. There was definitely, I always had our firearms, and we did a lot of training. Camp Smith, we went down to Fort Dix. So, and we went to the range, twice a year. So that in itself is an important thing, because what happens when a firearm discharge, they look at your previous incidences at the range. What did you score? What did you shoot when you were there? And now we might talk about, what time were you there? When did you go? So there's a lot of information there too. So yeah, I agree 100%. If you're gonna carry your firearm, be proficient in it, practice with it. It's the only way you're gonna get better. If you're gonna use I don't know if they still do it, the 50 rounds free every month, but if they don't do that, get yourself set up with a range, and maybe once a week, at least once a month, go and shoot and become familiar with the gun, and make sure that you know how to, where you're carrying it, familiarity with the weapon, everything else, because otherwise, you're up for a lot of speculation and a lot of investigation that could come down. So, and I'm not saying, I don't know Ben Gurley, that he didn't go to the range. Maybe he's an avid gun guy and he did, but I just know that there was that executive cycle where a lot of people, didn't go to the range. So, I mean, so they definitely should, but that's another aspect of a firearms discharge, and whether or not, it was accidental, unintentional, or whatever. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. So again, I think.
But I just want to stay trained up, said Rob. So what score did they give you? I would never take a fake 100. I would ask them to give me a 98 or a 96. No.
Good evening to Chief Mike. How are you? Chief Marino, how's everything? But yeah, so listen, again, I think that this needs to be spoken about. It's topical. It's in the news. It involves an investigation into an executive in the police department. We give our executive perspective on things. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this and didn't, give our perspective. again, but it's limited to the facts that we have at hand. So again, our recommendation is definitely carry if you're off duty and you have that ability, because you need to protect yourself and your family if there's imminent danger, right? As well as others, right? Because again, as Marlon said, right? You're a cop 24/7. So if you see something, a felony, you're supposed to be taking action, right? At the very least, you gotta call 911. But the true cop in you, you're gonna wind up probably taking action, and you need to be as well protected as possible, and having your firearm in this environment, in this world, is just a must. Don't get involved if you don't have to get involved, especially if you are personally involved. If you're personally involved, you got to step back as far as you can. That's humanly possible. Again, if there's no imminent threat, right? Again, we don't know all the facts. We don't know if there was an imminent threat. Question came up: how did they both wind up to be at this Stop and Shop at the same time? We don't know. We don't know if it was a planned meeting where he was going to try and talk to this kid and say, leave her alone, and then it got physical. We don't know if they coincidentally showed up. We don't know if he was somehow tracking her, right? Because listen, you can go on Amazon and buy a tracking device, throw it on somebody's car, and they wouldn't even know about it, right? The Apple AirTag will notify somebody with an iPhone that there's an AirTag in close proximity. But after the AirTag came out, all these other tracking devices come out that aren't trackable. You could throw that on a car. Maybe he was tracking the car. We don't know. We don't know. So that's why we're limited in what we can look at and analyze. But knowing the police department, knowing these investigations as well as we know these investigations from all the years that we've done them, and we did them before force investigation existed. So if there was a firearms discharge, we were the investigating supervisors, right? We were designated shooting captain or whatever the case may be to look at these cases and evaluate these cases. So we're coming from a place of experience and knowledge. We can't give a full detailed analysis because we don't have all the details. But details we do have is that discipline was somewhat swiftly doled out against a 2-star chief. If it wasn't a 2-star chief and it was a cop, would the person have been suspended? Again, we don't know the details. If we find out the details, and then we can make a call and say, you know what, if this was a cop, they probably would have been suspended, not just modified. We don't know, right? Because we don't have the facts yet. I think they will come out. I think there will be transparency. I think it will come out. I think because it's in the paper, and now people are going to be asking the questions. And a lot of times that's what pushes it, like you said. Possibly that's why Haverstraw had to put their statement out, because they were doing their due diligence and they were getting pressure because the job was going to do something. So if the NYPD was going to do something, they kind of have to step up and show their cards as well. So that's what we're saying. We're saying try not to be involved. If you're personally involved, try to get the authorities involved. According to the mother's post, that may have been the case, that they were trying and they were coming up empty, that nobody was coming to their aid. Maybe he felt at that point that he had to personally get involved. I don't know. And again, we have orders.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I mean, it's truly a sad state of affairs that if, in fact, his daughter was being harassed and nobody was coming to the aid, especially in another law enforcement, you would expect that if you walked in there and you told them, hey, my daughter's being harassed by this individual, what can we do? And usually, the law enforcement, or you would hope that the law enforcement would take the action necessary, so not the fact that, the wife is saying no aid that's horrendous. That, and that's not just for law enforcement, that's for anybody, right? So if I know people that have been stalked, and it's a scary situation, right? So even when that individual that's stalking them is not around, they're still suspecting that that person is there. So there's a constant fear for that individual. Very, very scary. So, I mean, I would just hope that what she mentioned, that there were some people that were investigating, some people looking at that, because things like this should not go unwarranted, because, you see things where people, stalk and they harass, and the next thing you know, it leads to, a catastrophic murder and stuff. So, and then, as far as, you said, I mean, Ben, we'll see what happens. I mean, I think there's a little bit of substance to it, because I think as a two-star chief, and we talked about white, shirt immunity, I think they would have given a little bit more benefit of the doubt, which they usually do to somebody in a white shirt, and maybe not modified them. But I think there's a little more to this. So I'm just hoping that, he's okay, and that, I guess the truth will come out, and we'll know for a fact there. But it's a terrible thing that, he has to go through this. Obviously he's trying to defend his daughter, and maybe, he took it to the level that you shouldn't have. But, there's quite a few things here. The modification obviously is not good. He's a two-star chief. So the swift action, I don't know, is that warranted by Tish? I'm actually glad that she did. It's the unknown, right? So this way, at least she shows the rank and file that there is no white shirt immunity, and what the information that we have right now have led us to believe that the modification is justified. So I think that might be a step in the right direction, because I could have seen it easily being pushed under the rug. And somebody, you just brought it up, but somebody mentioned about Letitia James, and I don't believe she investigates that, because it's usually only for a death in custody or a death by MOS on or off duty. So I don't think she does. I think it's just going to be the Rockland DA, and it's going to be the department, whether or not they give charges and specifications to him. So
I think that, didn't they change that she can investigate any off-duty conduct, criminal
with a
conduct by
firearm
an
discharge?
police officer. I don't even think there has to be a firearms discharge.
I don't know. I don't remember that, because all the ones that I read, there was always a firearms discharge, or an individual was killed by law enforcement. It wasn't just any crime in itself. So I'd have to look that up, but I don't remember that. I just remember reading Letitia James's report, and every one of those incidences were always where a police officer killed somebody, whether it was accidentally or, in a traffic accident or from a firearms discharge. So I'm not sure. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Ben. I mean, I think somebody mentioned earlier on in the chat, it might have been the fastest somebody got dumped out of a command, right? He just took his new Bronx North command, and then he's bounced. So, but we'll see.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I mean, you have anything else?
No, I think we covered everything, right? I think the off-duty conduct, armed and unarmed, accidental. Yeah, I mean, I think everything's kind of covered, and we'll have to wait to see what happens, And here's the other one last thing with this: don't listen to rumors, right? Because you hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm hearing this, I'm hearing that." Basically, what we did is we went over the facts, right, about the modification and the incidents that was reported by the Haverstraw Police Department. Yeah, we threw out a couple of instances of what we heard, but there's going to be a lot of talk about it. There's going to be a lot about different other stuff. But yeah, no, I don't think. I think you just need to wait and see what happens, and just happy that the department took some sort of action. I'm sure we'll come to a good final conclusion with it, because we have, like I said earlier, we have Haverstraw looking at it first. So the department's going to be guided by what Haverstraw does, because there is no way that the NYPD right now can intervene with the Haverstraw and the Rockland DA's investigation, unless there's some political ties, and then we'll all know the BS right there. So, but that's all I have about that. So,
all right. So under Executive Law, Section 75, the Law Enforcement Misconduct Investigation Office, which falls under Letitia James's office, is empowered to investigate allegations of corruption, fraud, excessive force, or abuse across more than 500 local law enforcement agencies in the state. This includes reviewing off-duty misconduct and systemic trends within departments. So yeah, I thought they did change it because she can look at excessive force cases. And this may be considered excessive force by an off-duty member, depending on the circumstances that do come out in the long run.
I think it was something else you said in there. It was more of what they might be able to investigate it, because I don't know about the excessive.
They're mandated under Section 70B. The Office of Special Investigation is mandated to investigate and, if warranted, prosecute any alleged criminal offense committed by a police officer, whether on or off duty, that results in the death of a person, which is what you were talking about.
That I know, yeah.
But then it was extended under those local law 75, executive law 75, that she can look into corruption, excessive force, and she could take the case and prosecute the case.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see either one of them, but
No, we don't know the extent he was treated and released.
Yeah, we'll see.
We will see. All right, so we have over 500 people viewing. We have a lot of people watching on X, and we always invite them to come over to YouTube so you can get involved in the interactive chat. As you see, we interact very much on this show with the chat and get them involved in the conversation, try to answer their questions as we go along, and then we'll have a segment later on called Ask the Executive, where we open up to on and off topic questions. And Detective Nolan is looking for the call-in segment, which doesn't exist.
I gave you a home phone number.
I did. On the day show, he asked for it, so I told him it was 347 no Nolan. That's my phone number. So call that up. So yeah, switch on over. If you're on X and you can switch over and you have you're accessible, you could watch on the New York's Finest Retired Unfiltered channel. You'll see the link, click on the link, and then you can get into the conversation with us. So what else is going on, right? So Police Commissioner Tisch had a press conference this week where she announced her concern for the threat environment that we're currently under, stating, I'm going to play a little part of the press conference. But one of the main things that she was saying is that the FBI issued drone warnings for the FIFA World Cup in America 250 and more high-profile events. There's also the Boat 250, I think it's called. So New York City Police Commissioner Tisch said Thursday that the MIT has finally obtained the green light to shoot drones out of the sky. I don't know if that's exactly how it happens. They're not shooting guns up, but amid worries about the possibility of a terror attack during the summer of high-profile events, starting with the FIFA World Cup. The MIT has also a new multi-million-dollar arsenal of weapons at their disposal. So we'll look at that a little bit more, but let's look at where she talks about her concern. Like we said, the only answer you've ever heard from the police department, the federal government, is there are no credible threats at this time, right? So let's see what she had to say about the current threat environment.
Little breaking news coming into the story. New York City Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch issuing this stark warning a short time ago. Watch.
I began my career building out the NYPD's counterterrorism capabilities. And in my 18 years in government, I have not seen a threat environment quite like this one, where multiple pressures are active at the same time and where developments abroad can have immediate consequences here at home. Just last week, a commander for Kataib Hezbollah, a designated foreign terrorist organization aligned with Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, was charged with helping direct 18 attacks and plots against Jewish and American targets overseas since hostilities began in Iran on February 28th. And he allegedly tried to bring that terror here to New York City. According to the complaint, he sent a map, photograph, and identifying information for a New York synagogue to someone that he believed could carry out that attack.
Yeah, a little more context here. Tish says that suspect seen in this photo with former IRGC Commander Qasem Soleimani, that's the man that President Trump went after and successfully killed a few years ago, was thwarted thanks to the state's partnership with federal authorities. Imagine that. The states working with the federal government? Might be a trend.
Little sarcasm at the end about local police working with the federal government, but it's true that, you know, we've talked about it in the past. You've said it yourself that we constantly hear this. There are no credible threats at this time, right? How can anybody watch TV after dinner any night and not know that there are credible threats out there against the United States? And when you say the threats against the United States, you're looking at New York City as one of the prime targets, the crossroads of the world, Times Square, New York City. So we say it all the time that there are always threats, and that the job always just has these stock answers. I think the last time we said it was right during the White House press dinner, right? That there's no credible threats. There's no credible threats. There's always credible threats. There's always threats that are out there. And to say that there's none is being disingenuous. I mean, there may not be, Ron Layson saying that he's going to go and blow up the synagogue like they just had, right? But while they were conducting this investigation, they were telling you there's no credible threats.
That's what they always say, right? That we're going to put this many people out on a detail, and right now there's no credible threats. I've never heard it where they said there was a credible threat, right? I never had a credible threat. So, and like I've said in the past on the previous shows, heightened alert. Aren't you kind of always on a heightened alert? I mean, when are we laid back and laying on beach chairs? At Orchard Beach, waiting for the call. No, you're always on heightened alert. So I don't understand that. So, I mean, I just think, and the fact that, she's going to, take drones out of the sky. Okay. I mean, that's been talked about for years now. Okay. That, if you remember years ago, there was a YouTube video where there was a gun on a drone, and they had where the gun could actually fire. So you could send a drone to somebody's house and literally shoot them and fire the weapon. And then we talked about explosives on drones, and we also talked about biological and chemical warfare on drones. Coming in and dropping things, and what you see in the Ukraine war, and even in the conflict now in the Middle East, drones are a big part of it. But years ago on details, we used to have the FBI would come and working with the counterterrorism division, they had the anti-drone capability. And what they normally do is they would shoot on a radio frequency at that, which would disrupt it, and then it would just come down to the ground. It wouldn't break into pieces. Nobody was shooting guns at it. Although there had been talks about, taking a drone out if necessary. That was something that we spoke about with the counter sniper teams if ever needed, but obviously was never done. But yeah, I mean, so high threat, high level. This is the highest she's ever seen. I don't know how much higher can it go. I mean, where is it? It's super high now. I don't know. So it's always been a high level. We've always been in heightened alert. So I think it's just a lot of rhetoric. Maybe it's more money to get, the feds to come in and do drone detection, or to give us we finally got permission, I think, from the feds and the FAA to utilize some anti-drone technology. So maybe that's it, and somebody, I think it was Lily, mentioned it earlier in the chat, isn't this event going to happen in New Jersey? And it is. It's going to happen over in the Meadowlands, but there's all these watch parties and there's all these other things that are happening with that all around the city. So, the city's adamantly involved in it. If you remember years ago when the Super Bowl, right? The Super Bowl, they shut down half of Times Square and had this whole kickoff and everything else, even though it was happening in the Meadowlands. So the New York City, epicenter of the world. So something's always going to be going on for here. So yeah, it's craziness. And the talk is, I don't know, is it a scare technique? I don't know. But yeah, I like to be on heightened alert. Sounds good.
Well, let's look at what's the portion about the drones itself in her press conference.
Mm-hmm.
Is taking steps to protect New Yorkers from dangerous drones. And today, the police commissioner said they have the green light to shoot them out of the sky.
The announcement comes as the city prepares for a busy summer packed with massive events. Political reporter Marcia Kramer is here now to explain this. Big announcement.
It is a big announcement. Justin, KJ, with the World Cup, Sail 250, America 250, and the 4th of July, New York City has a plethora of events that could be potential targets. So the police commissioner worked with the Fed to train a group of cops in drone mitigation. She said she's most concerned about the weaponization of drones in the Ukraine that could be adopted for a terror attack right here.
Tactics that once belonged to militaries are now increasingly accessible to smaller groups and individuals, and commercial drones can be easily adapted into weapons of war.
They weren't wearing the costumes of superheroes or Cap Crusaders, but Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch, U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton, and James Barnacle, the man in charge of the New York FBI office, have joined forces to combat what they see as the possibility of terror attacks during the World Cup or one of the other high-profile events in New York City this summer. A drone attack is one of their biggest concerns.
There are foreign nations and terrorist organizations that see our success as a threat that they want eliminated. When your enemies tell you something, and when they act, you should know that they mean it.
The commissioner says she got authorization to have cops train with the FBI in removing drones from the sky. The department has also spent millions on drone mitigation technology, including the purchase of a special SUV capable of neutralizing drones.
NYPD personnel are positioned to work with our federal partners under new authority to confront credible drone threats at major events lawfully and effectively. Over the past several months, we have purchased $6.5 million in drone mitigation equipment.
NYPD Deputy Commissioner Rebecca Weiner says officials are worried about threats from Hamas, Hezbollah, and other terror groups.
This is not a hypothetical threat. It is a real threat that's being borne out elsewhere.
The FAA will establish no drone zones starting with World Cup events.
If you are planning to fly a drone at a World Cup event or over restricted airspace in New York City, think again. Flying in these areas isn't just dangerous, it is a federal crime.
The threat picture has changed, the technology has changed, and our capabilities have to change with it.
Now, for security reasons, the police commissioner would not reveal where or when the drone mitigation teams will be stationed. But even recreational flyers will face penalties if they fly their drones during the summer's high-profile events. Now, listen to this. Violators can be fined up to $100,000 and be sent to jail. Guys?
It's shocking that we have to even think of this, but it's nice to know that these steps are being taken to protect all of us, Marcia.
And they're working with the feds, which is really important.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you.
So yeah, they're not telling you. I mean, they're making it sound, of course, because they're trying to get their headlines. Well, NYPD is going to shoot them out of the sky. That's not how it works. They're not telling us exactly what type of technology they have, what type of technology they'll be using with that drone mitigation vehicle that they have. But I mean, it is scary that we're having the conversation, but it's important that we are having the conversation. And Tish has been pushing for this ability and the permission from the federal government to actually, for the NYPD to be trained, because prior to it, only the feds were able to disable a drone and take the drone out of the sky. And Mike Marino says here, only the feds can disable a gun. Drones can drop explosives, biological and chemical also. Years ago, Kelly said we had the capability to shoot planes out of the sky. I guess nobody told Corey Lytle.
Oh, that's terrible. Poor Corey Lytle crashed into a building. We thought it was another terrorist attack.
Yeah, remember that. Yep. And,
but actually, what? Go ahead, Rob. Is it EMJE 272? Right. There actually was aviation does have a 50 cal. They used to practice at Fort Dix, and they used to also go out. We actually got a complaint from what I remember. They used to take pizza boxes out and throw them in the water, and then shoot them with the 50 cal from the helicopter. And the Coast Guard started complaining because they were saying we were kind of like depositing garbage into the ocean. So, but we did have a 50 cal, and that was going to be used if to stop a vehicle or whatever. The other thing, real quick, is with aviation, right? So when to track a drone, which we used to do when we didn't have the jamming technology, we would track it, and aviation would follow it, and then we would send ground units to the house where the individual was operating the drone. So it was kind of like it was a coordinated effort between the precinct and the aviation unit to kind of track and find out where the guy was. But just keep in mind that those drones are very, very dangerous for helicopters as well. I mean, you hit a tail rotor, or even one of the main rotors, you could have a catastrophic event too. So yeah, those drones are dangerous. So it's not a bad idea to be able to jam them and bring them down. So we'll see. But I think it's a Tish's play on another one of her. Look what I did and look what I got. So because this has been, how long has this been unfolding? We had Kaz, the drone king, all along. So it doesn't surprise me that it's a continuation. So, and Mike Marino cannot give you a spot on. He's part of the network.
What are you talking about?
You always say that Mike Marino is, because he was on as a guest, he's part of the family of the finest Unfiltered. So you can't solicit one from a family member.
I don't solicit spot-ons. I don't keep track of the spot-ons.
Mike said right there, oh shit. See, Mike, you can't. You're part of the family, So hold on, let me. I know my family members are watching the podcast right now. I'm going to have them all jump on.
I don't want the spot-ons. I want to stay on track with the conversation.
Oh yeah, you don't like spot-ons, but you got a spot-on.
That was for you.
Goal.
It's not for me. I don't get a breast bar.
But you got the spot on. You just gave yourself an EPD for it.
No, that's for you, big guy. You got them all. That was created. Was it last week that Detective Nolan or somebody asked for one? It said that we should have one. Or Mikey G said we should. Somebody asked. It said we should have it. Sleepy Joe, I think it might have been. Was it you, Sleepy Joe? Asked for a breast bar.
All right.
Spot on. And then there you go.
There you go. Artie, my man.
You got a spot Rob. I don't know what that is. That's only
that's the same thing. Spot Rob, yeah. This by the end of the year, I'm gonna have a rack this high. So all right.
Because you're gonna do an individual one, not a numbers. You're gonna have
I'll have them on my wall. Can you sign them for me and I'll put them on my wall? You just make one. I'll make eight duplicate copies. That's all.
Yeah. In the blue frames. in the blue paper frames. But listen, it's important. And we have to keep up with technology. We have to keep up.
Look, Joe Cortez. Thank you, Joe. One of your guests.
He doesn't count either. He's on the show twice.
All right. Thanks anyway, Joe.
But no, I mean it's important that we talk about these things. We've talked about it in the past, right? It's it's a scary thing. You know, the technology that's out there, you see these drone attacks. Again, sit in front of your television any night of the week after dinner. And you see, you know, she talked about, you know, the Ukraine and the drone attacks that are being utilized in the Ukraine.
Yeah.
There's nothing that says that that can't be duplicated here in the United States. And we have to have those capabilities in order to disable them. So,
yeah, no, it doesn't hurt for us to have that technology. I don't know why it took so long not for us to get it. Like, what did they think, that we were going to abuse it? I mean, what, you know, obviously you have POTUS coming in all the time, right? You have the UN, the United Nations General Assembly, right? You have concerts, you have a lot of other things where there's huge crowds, even the bullshit demonstrations that you have every day to protect those people. Why don't we have that drone capability, you know, years ago to stop it? Because at any given time, one of those could have easily, you know, dropped in some, you know, chemical, biological, or weaponry. I mean, anything could have happened. So, you know, why did it take so long? But that's the federal government, I guess. So, but I'm glad to see that the federal government is working well with the NYPD, and maybe it's a step in the right direction. You know?
Now, yeah, I saw something just before we came on that the DOJ is now investigating, you know, the sanctuary cities, including Commissioner Tisch in New York City, because of the sanctuary city laws. Governor Hochul, you know, signed into effect. That really doesn't change anything. You know, not to get off topic, but you see what's going on in Newark, New Jersey, with the violence against ICE at the detention center. Where is the local law enforcement? Again, not to be misconstrued with assisting ICE in the detainers, execution of detainers and warrants and judicial, you know, if they're not judicial warrants and they're administrative warrants, and they're considering that civil enforcement. We're not talking about having the local police department go out with the ICE agents on sweeps. You're talking about civil disorder. You're talking about violence against federal law enforcement officers. You're talking about videos of people digging up bricks from an island, you know, on the sidewalk, and digging out those bricks to use as a blockade to block the federal agents from coming out of the detention center. How in good conscience could anyone think that it's okay, that they don't need assistance? They're not trained in disorder control or you know, public order, whatever the terminology is of the day. They're not trained in public order. They're not trained. You see them, they're there with asps, holding people back with an asp. That's not public order training. They're not properly trained for that. You need to have someone like the SRG or whatever their local equivalent is in New Jersey, or even the local law enforcement there, to maintain order, to maintain safety of all involved, of the protesters and the federal law enforcement agents. It blows my mind to watch it and not see any local police.
Well, I mean, you look at it, the governor shows up and she tries to get access to it. And how does that happen, right? She you know, they deny her, but when the people there see that, then they're empowered as well. But I agree I just think they're ill prepared, ICE. I think they need to get their act together, and either if local law enforcement not going to support them, then they need to bring in their special their special forces or whatever, and maintain a line, the perimeter or whatever, and start arresting these people. Because it's very disheartening to see the poor ICE guys. The one video I watched, the ICE guys had to retreat because they were getting pushed back so far. So I mean that's very, very disheartening. And you know, when it, like Robert Murphy too says, right, you got a Democratic governor and it refuses to send law enforcement there, then we need to act on it with the federal agents and start locking them up. You know, I would if they want to come over the line, come over the line. And guess what? Now you violate federal law, and we're going to arrest them. So, you know, I don't know.
I'm getting yelled at on my text that I'm not pronouncing Hochul's name properly.
Oh, okay.
I don't care, really. But you know,
and I just wanted with real quick, just to I know Mike Marino. Thanks, Mike. He talked about federal law. That's why we didn't have the drone capability, but that should have been changed a long time ago. And I know Reed mentioned, you know, that Commissioner Kelly really didn't work well with the feds. So we're just trying to make amends to that too, and that might have had something to do with it as well. So you know, you really should be, all law enforcement should be working together for a common goal. And if you need to change laws and you need to change things, you know, you need to do it, because I don't remember the feds being readily available for every event that we needed to, you know, to stop drones from coming in. So.
Yeah. And Detective Nolan is saying the active denial system, ADS, is non-lethal directed energy weapon developed by the military to that projects an invisible beam of millimeter wavelength radio waves to deter individuals. We wouldn't need any of this if the local law enforcement worked in conjunction with the federal agents to maintain peace. Once again, I am not in favor of sanctuary city laws, but I am not saying that we should violate sanctuary city laws. But maintaining public order, safety, okay, and security, and securing people from getting injured is not violating sanctuary city laws. And sanctuary city laws does not say that you cannot work with the federal government. Otherwise, we wouldn't have permission from the drones, right? Because then we're working with the federal government in a sanctuary city, right? But because it's not ICE, but that's not the point. The point is that you have public disorder, you have violent actors that are throwing ice-filled, pardon, you know, the correlation, you know, the non-correlation, but water bottles that are frozen so that they could cause damage when they're thrown and injuries when they're thrown at the federal agents, as well as these bricks and everything else. And they're physically confronting them. You need local law enforcement to come in and to quell that violence and to maintain order. That is not violating sanctuary city laws. And then New York City 26 says it, we won't protect federal agents, but we expect the federal one.
Yeah, well, they tried to stop that. There was a few lawsuits, but I mean, I agree. You need to just maintain order. I mean, it's the order is not just for the individual protesters, you know, which is just not for ICE, but it's also for them. It's for both sides. Okay. If you want to, I mean, we talked about, you know, the shootings and everything else that's happened in the past. Why don't we protect the individuals by having local law enforcement there to either de-escalate it or maintain a line so that there is not that you know, pushing and shoving, and the incident gets a little out of hand. So, I mean, it's just ridiculous in all that respect.
Yep. Well, I want to bring us back just in conjunction with not only just the threat of, you know, some type of terrorist attack or drone attack at the FIFA World Cup, which, as Lily, you know, was questioning, yes, it's in New Jersey, and like Rob said, there's going to be watch parties here and everything else, and we may talk about watch parties in a minute, but there's a lot of activities that are going on in the New York metropolitan area. And it's not just that. You have the USA 250, big celebrations going on. And again, now we're talking about manpower as well. How are we going to possibly police these events with the amount of police that we have and the high threat posture, and the excessive amount of actual details and events that are going on throughout the city. Well, the police commissioner put out an email today to all members of the service that says, given these unprecedented demands on our department, we will move to 12-hour tours for the majority of uniformed members of the service from July 1st to July 7th. Additional dates may be added as we get closer to the World Cup finals in the middle of July. So they're telling you right now, for that week, you're working 12 hours, but they don't anticipate suspending the chart or canceling annual vacation picks, which that's what the AVPs are, or individual vacation days, or as a general matter, RDOs, your regular days off. That's as a general matter. But what they're going to do is they're going to give you mandatory overtime and make you come in. They're not going to cancel your RDOs, but they're going to give out so many notifications that hardly anybody's going to have any RDOs, right? There will be no excusals, which means you can't just take a day off if you didn't select it. You have a contractual agreement with the police department that you make selections before the year starts of what weeks you're going to take off so that you can guarantee yourself time to make plans and go away. That's what she's talking about suspending the chart. If the police commissioner suspends the chart, then they don't have to honor your annual vacation picks and your individual vacation days, right? So the chief department's office will issue detailed guidance to each bureau in the coming weeks. And then, I know it's a lot, but we don't take it lightly. Time and again, you show up. But the long and the short is you're going to have 12-hour tours. And even though we're not canceling the RDOs, everybody's going to get notified to work on their RDOs.
See, my biggest problem with the 12-hour tours, and I understand, guys, you get, because if you work 8:35, you're going to get 3 hours and 25 minutes overtime. But sometimes they'll extend that. The problem is a 12-hour tours turns into a 15-hour day for somebody, okay, because you're commuting back and forth. You got to go home if you're not staying at the precinct or whatever. So literally you're talking about 15, 16 hours. And then you're talking about, maybe getting 8 hours of sleep if you get home and you fall asleep or whatever. I'm going to say maybe less, maybe 4 hours. It really puts a strain on the personnel. Years ago, they used to, pull out people and just sign them to the detail and then you put other people on, you would suspend the chart by taking the guys out, the second and the second and midnights might, get the 4 hours in the command overtime, and then you would take the third platoon and put them on the detail, which to me always made a little bit more sense. But if you start extending all these people's tours, it's going to be a lot. And, I thought everybody was kind of already stressed out and, lack of, family and everything else. And now they're just going to add it on. So I don't know. Is it worth it? I mean, we talk about overtime, right? The wave, it goes in and goes out. It's just like the wave of an ocean. And it seems to me that it's coming back in. So, I mean, just the main thing with that is you got to make sure you're safe and then you get the appropriate rest. There's times when I was doing 12-hour tours and I would have to sleep at the command because there was no way I was going to make it home, but that gets played out too because, hey, I had an office, so I had a cot, so I knew I had a place to lay my head. But there's so many bunks in the dorm. And it fills up fast. So
yeah. Also, as executives, we do have dorms. We do have showers that are just for the executives. Members of the service are not getting those amenities, and are also having to, like you said, how many cots are there? How many dirty couches are they going to sleep on? Or uncomfortable chairs in the in the kitchen that they're going to sleep on. And then, can they take a proper shower to clean themselves? Their uniforms, are standing up in the locker by themselves because they haven't been brought home to be washed. It's terrible. And like you said, the overtime is cyclical. We're going to have a sergeant on in a few weeks that had to leave the job because the overtime was pulled. But now, was that the right decision? Because now the overtime, they talked about it, they cut it. And then they talked about it, and then it's back again, and now they're talking about forcing it down your throat again.
Yeah.
But you have to make a decision at the time, and we'll hear from him where his thought process was on that. Also, Ernie Morales III, my former XO friend, is says, talking back about ICE again, correct, they should be there to maintain the peace and safety of all involved in their local jurisdictions. But what should we expect when we have our politicians pandering to the ideology? It's 100% true. And Ernie, also, I'll be reaching out to you soon. Come on the show and do an interview, memorialize your career. You got that picture up there. You a commander in the Navy. So talk about your military career, your police career, and your career as a law enforcement executive in 2 different agencies after you left the NYPD. So hit me up.
Hey, what Reed says in the comments here, I remember that. Remember there was a MOS from the 2-5 who slept in his car. That was at 1844 hours. To the court the next day and got shot. You remember that? I remember that vividly.
The car got shot. I don't think he got hit. I
thought he got hit, or was it the glass maybe that broke or whatever? But he got shot at sitting in his car. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, straight bullet. I don't think it was targeted. It was just a stray round that went through and hit his car.
That's what they said. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
it's pretty desolate there. I was a sergeant in the 2-5. It's pretty desolate over there. I mean, the parking lot is right off of Park Avenue. And, right. So I don't remember it being really like, unless somebody was from the train, because there's an elevated train there on Park. But I don't know. I don't know how a round just popped off of that and just, hit that. So, but scary.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I forget the exact details, but I think they did identify where it came from.
Yeah.
I don't remember 100%. If anybody remembers, just throw it up. We'll put it out there. But yeah, I mean, that's another thing that you have to think about, besides the terror threat is the availability and the strain, again, on the members that are out in the field every day, because there has been such attrition, even though they say that they're at their allotted head count, their allotted head count has been lowered from where it was. So you have these cops that are out there and they're going to be used and abused to cover these
They're
details.
going to be stressed. They're going to put the stress on yourself, your family. It's a lot, but it's not. I mean, the money's nice, but you know what? You want to make sure that you stay healthy, right? We talk about health and welfare of everybody else. You want to be able to to retire and enjoy your pension rather than be stressed out and not be healthy. So
on that note,
funny I should say that, right?
Yeah. On that note, actually, I was in Long Island yesterday in Merrick, and came out of the pizzeria after doing a little shopping. And there was a guy on the sidewalk that turned around and said something. I'm looking at him like, okay. And he's like, "You don't remember me?" I'm looking like, ooh, I hate that. I hate that when they hit you with, "You don't remember me," because you feel bad. A lot of times as the boss, you're in a command that could have 100+ members. I know that's hard to believe nowadays, a couple of hundred people in the precinct or in the detail. And in the Bronx, I had almost 1,300 uniformed and civilian members working for me when I was the Bronx Borough Commander, Bronx Queens Borough Commander of Housing. And he's like, "Former wedge?" Now I'm like, oh, where do I know this guy from? When I was in task force, whatever the case may be. And then he says to my wife, "You don't remember me either?" And she looks and she's like, "Oof, Columbia Association?" He's like, "You're getting close." And he says his name. And I'm like, holy crap. I never would have, and I knew him well. I knew his family. He worked for me in the Queens North Task Force when I was the commanding officer there. He was actually the delegate. But he had lost over 100 pounds since he retired a few years ago. And he said it took him almost 4 years to do it. Diet, exercise. He looked so good. He's in the gym every day, taking care of himself, made himself healthy. So shout out to you. I'll say Carmine, shout out to you. I told you I was going to give you a shout out. For those of you who know who I'm talking about. If you don't know, Carmine, good man, was the delegate over at the task force. Everybody over there was pretty tight. And, I told him, I says, listen, Carmine, don't take it as an insult that I don't remember you. I know exactly who you are, but I never would have picked you out of the lineup. I never would. I'm having a hard time looking at you, knowing who you are, saying, no, you're not Carmine. Because he lost so much weight and he looks so good. Shout out to you. It was great running into you. It was great seeing you. I'm so happy for you and your family that you got yourself healthy and you look great. My wife couldn't stop talking about him the whole way home. Oh my God, Carmine looks so great. He looks so good. I'm like, all right, enough already. You want me to go back? I think I still have his number. But seriously, he looked great. And just to your point about, being healthy and staying healthy after the job, that just triggered my shout out to him. Yeah, it was really good to see him, and I was so happy for him. And I still picture him in my mind going, I still don't see it, because I've always known him as a big guy. I've always known him as a big guy. So that was really good to see.
No, that's good. No, Modern Samurai says the New York Times reported that officer was shot in the 2-5. That's what he's saying. So, yeah,
all right.
That's I thought he was, but I think Modern Samurai was.
They weren't sure if it was that or the glass, maybe. I don't remember, but yeah.
Modern Samurai says you should also give a spot on to Carmine. So give him. Where's the medal up? Put the medal up for Carmine. There, give him an EPD for doing the good work.
Took it down.
No, it's down. You lost it. All right.
I got it. I could bring it back up. It doesn't take me much. Come on, I'm getting good at this. That's for Carmine.
Yeah,
Carmine gets spot on for his health.
All right, Carmine. Yeah.
But yeah. So there you go.
Eric saying spot on stat. We should do that. We should have a monthly New York's finest unfiltered spot on stat.
Who's saying that?
Huh?
Who's saying that?
Eric, most complained cop.
Eric is the originator of the spot on.
Yeah.
That's an Eric Dim term.
Eric Dim, he should be on the dais and saying, Ron, how come you haven't got so many spot ons? I want to see more spot ons. I want to see more stuff from you. You're falling behind. That's what he should be doing. So, he could be up on the dais and telling us all. And then we have Marlon in the background doing the computer work with the spot ons and how many and the time you get the spot on in the podcast. So it's all relevant. So I think it'll work. So
Marlon saying we'll have to go to the podium and explain why the spot-ons are down.
That's it. Loving it, man. Loving it.
Why are your spot-ons low for the month? Eric wants us to check the quest.
That's it.
Oh.
Maybe they should do that in the NYPD. Instead of positive craft, you get a spot on.
Mike Freed wants you to make a spot-on challenge coin, Eric.
Oh, there you go. Good idea, Mike. I like that. Yeah.
We need a new chief.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Listen, we'll use the rocket fuel for Marlon. We'll make put Marlon in charge.
That's it. Yeah.
All right, but thank you, Jagged J 2510. This podcast is great. We appreciate your support for our show and the network. So we appreciate that. Finest Unfiltered merch. Well, you never know what's coming in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, as you guys have seen the last couple of weeks, we've been trying to play around with some graphics. Last week we put up a couple of graphics. We got some feedback, both in the chat and in our text messages. And we've adjusted. We've pivoted.
Yeah.
You know, like on Friends. Rob and I were after the show on the phone going pivot, pivot, pivot. We were taking the couch up the stairs, and we were taking the pictures off of the thumbnails because they were not not the greatest. Listen, I'm playing around with the AI, with the Chat GPT and all of that stuff, trying to come up with stuff, trying to step up the game a little bit. And I said it in the group chat we had today that I think we got a little bit ahead of ourselves. Like maybe I got a little ahead of myself making up these thumbnails. And then, you know, Rob's looking at them going, that looks cool. That looks good. Until you see it on the screen and you're like, oh, maybe not so much.
Yeah, no, everybody thought I had anorexia. So I'm better now. I'm better now.
But let's real quick. Let's give speaking of playing with the AI and making some thumbnails, let's give a quick shout out to the Eastern Conference champion New York Knicks. Right, they headed to the NBA Finals for the first time in 27 years. Now, I'm not a basketball. I don't follow basketball, but hey, it's a New York team, so I'm all about supporting them. Congratulations, they swept the last two series to get themselves into the finals. We'll see what happens when that comes. Right? You a basketball fan, Rob?
Growing up, I was a big Knicks fan. I love the Knicks. I actually got a signed autograph from Walt Clyde Frazier. I still have that signed, but I kind of, after my own personal basketball skills were probably the suckiest things you would ever see on the court. I started following really the New York Rangers and the New York Giants. So, but yeah, I'm still proud of the Knicks, and I'm glad they're going to the the big NBA Finals. So I'm happy for them. So yeah, truthfully I was a little disappointed about the watch parties and stuff, and what Tish was I guess in the Madami was saying about the fans, but. You want New York teams to do well, so I'm happy for them.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we could talk about it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
How the NYPD denied the permits for MSG Knicks watch parties due to huge, very rough crowds. I mean, I watched videos, I saw it. We had our friend with the megaphone out there telling people to get down off the subway entrance rooftop of the subway entrance. A couple of people climbed up on top of some street signs, and there was 6 arrests. So I don't know about how rough the crowd was. I didn't hear about many injuries, but kind of what you kind of expect when you have such a big milestone as 27 years without going to the finals, and your fan that you've been rooting for forever is now doing so well, and they want to celebrate. So we're going to not allow people to celebrate, but you can go out and peacefully protest.
Yeah, I mean, it's sinful that they won't allow a watch party due to a large crowd, but you see large crowds take over the streets of Manhattan, walking down Times Square, 7th Avenue. Hey, you know what? If you're having a large amount of people, you can control them. You know how? Oh, geez. What about SRG? You know what? You have enough people on any type of demonstration, any type of watch party, enough police officers there, you'll be able to police it. All right. That's one thing the NYPD used to be able to do. So somebody just spoke about it. The TC talks about Juve. What about the West Indian Day Parade? These monstrous events, right? There's ways to police it. We know what to do. So to say that we're going to deny permits because it's on a rough crowd, no. You put enough police officers out there, and you can quell a rough crowd. Look at Times Square, right? There's a huge amount of people, and you have fire lanes, you have sectioned off means of egress and exits. It's doable. I don't know why they think they can't. For some reason, every time decent citizens of New York want to celebrate something like the 250th anniversary of the United States of America in Times Square, that's denied. Okay, the Knicks, hey, and New York home team going to the NBA Finals, that's denied. Whoa, but protests, you don't need a permit. Just come march. Take over the street. Stop traffic. We don't care. That's okay. Stop ambulances. That's okay. This is a planned event. You're literally putting your information on the permit. Where are you going to be? What streets are going to be closed so that emergency vehicles can get around or emergency lanes can be established. This is ridiculous, in my opinion. And it's a sorrowful day that a great team like the Knicks, who are this year, are coming up to this, and you're going to deny fans. It's ridiculous. Well,
listen, I understand that it's a strain on the resources, on the very limited resources that we have. I understand that when people put in for permits, you have to take into consideration other events that are going on within the city, manpower limitations, and it's easier to say no. But that's why we have all this problem with these pop-ups, because they're not putting in for permits. They're not putting in for requests. Maybe they would be denied. I don't think that they would, because I think politically they're not going to do that. To say no to these watch parties, and again, at first, the mayor was saying he's all for it, right? He's going there. He's with Jumaane Williams, putting out videos of himself, at the Knicks game.
Yeah, in a
everything
good seat
else.
too.
Huh?
He's got really good seats too.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But, the problem I see is that these crowds are going to be there. Somebody mentioned, in the chat, look at Philadelphia when they win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But I mean, that I never understood, where you tear down and destroy property in celebration. I don't get it.
Is Philadelphia where they used to grease the poles? So
Yes.
the guy, was that right?
So they couldn't climb the poles.
He
Yeah.
couldn't climb it. Yep.
So that I don't agree with, and that needs to be stopped. But again, when you aren't going to allow these watch parties, do you think that's going to stop the crowds from coming out of the garden? Do you think that it's going to stop them from creating their own crowd issues and parties? So now you've gone from being proactively involved in coming up with a plan, coming up with a public order control plan, proper barrier placement, proper penning of individuals like we do on New Year's Eve, to keep control of these crowds and allow them to celebrate. So now you're going to be a reactionary force. And that's where we become injured. That's where it becomes problematic for the NYPD, because now you're reacting to the crowd. The cops aren't ready for it. The cops aren't prepared for it and trained properly. And then they don't address the crowds properly because they come in thinking they got to just clear the streets. And now you have these conflicts and these confrontations of people going, I just want to celebrate, and you're pushing them down the street with your stick or whatever the case may be. And that just, to me, it's not de-escalating the situation, it's escalating the situation. De-escalating the situation would be preventive. My wife says it all the time: prevention, prevention, prevention.
Think about it, right? Lack of equipment, no barriers, no mesh restraining. The large orange meshes that they used to have used to control the crowd. No LRADs to give notifications. No personnel. You have to assemble people. No means of egress to even get in there. When the people take over the street, you're pretty much lost. It's done. You just kind of control the perimeters. So I mean, like Eric said earlier, he says that right there. How about you deny the West Indian Day parade? That's a crowd. Yeah, try that. Right? Try that, and do that. You'll end up forget it. It'll be mayhem and bedlam, and they'll still have the parade anyway. So I don't understand why they're throwing up the flag and saying we're not going to do it. It's better to understand it, control it, and run it the way you want to run it, rather than have all these bars in the area of Madison Square Garden filled with people, and then when they win, boom, everybody comes out on the street, traffic, ambulances are stopped, fire department stopped, police responses are stopped. It's total chaos, and it's much harder to reel that in and take control of that, rather than to establish the control prior to the event. I think it's asinine. I don't know why they're doing it. Why? I mean, I can understand. I think I have a speculation as why he doesn't want to do it, because maybe it doesn't benefit him. But you know, they was talk about having different watch parties in all different boroughs. I don't know. Could it even be worse then if you spread out everybody else? I don't know. But I just think, why not have it at Madison Square Garden? That's the home of the Knicks, right? It's the home of the New York Rangers. If anything's going to happen there, you know the venue, you know how to control it. How about extra people on the subways, right? Because that's a means of egress. Extra buses to bus people out of there when necessary at the Port Authority, which is a couple blocks up. All these things need to be planned out. And if you don't do the plan, you're going to have chaos. It's just ridiculous, but I still wish the Knicks the best. Hope they win. And, that's terrible. No, for the fans. It's not fair.
Eric said, I thought everything was supposed to be free. Watch party is free.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like everything else, Eric. He says it's free, but it's not free because listen, if you do have a watch party, it is going to cost money. It's going to cost overtime. It's going to cost resources, right? Even cops on straight time, that costs money if you have to police an event, right? And a lot of times people don't realize that when you put in for permits and if it's a large scale event, you actually have to pay the city for reimbursement of the law enforcement security. People don't realize that. When you have these big events, the venue has to kick some back to help pay to offset the cost of the city.
Yeah. No. And they're willing to do that. If they filed for a permit, they're willing to do that, right? So I mean, I just don't know. I just don't understand it. So I have to say, he just got back from the dealership.
Okay, you're gonna have to go back and watch the rewind. I'm sorry. There's just
I hope he got a good deal. So remember, don't pay for pinstriping or any other BS that they put on a vehicle in the aftermarket. That's all I got to say about that.
Oh, listen, it is what it is, and I wish them luck in the finals. They're going in, with a lot of momentum, and let people have good fun. Like somebody said, go out there, have a good time, and respect law enforcement. Somebody just said that. Where is it? Yeah. New York City 26, right? People should remember that they live in a free country. Go out there, have fun while respecting law enforcement. It's exactly it. Go out there and just have it. Have a good time. Have a good time.
Yeah.
Anything else? We're 2 hours in. We have over 625 viewers right now. Again, a lot of people watching on X. Invite you to come on over. As you see, we try to have a good time with the chat and interact with the chat. When you're on X, you're only going to see any comments that are made on X, and if I bring them up onto the screen. Otherwise, you can get involved in the conversation. There's a lot of funny stuff that goes on sometimes in the chat amongst the viewers, and we invite you over to the Finest Unfiltered network on YouTube. Get in there, give us a like, share, and subscribe. Hit the alerts button. All the shows will come up. All 3 shows on the network will come up as alerts. So we encourage you to do that. Anything else?
No. What do you want to? You want to go to the ask the executive, or?
Yeah, we'll do the ask the executive. segment. Here is off the recommendations of last week. We removed the photos, and for now we have just the shields up for Rob and myself, our former shields. So we'll open it up to Ask an Executive, where Ron and Rob answer questions from the chat, whether on or off topic. A lot of times people don't have the availability or the access to executives in law enforcement. Here you have a retired deputy chief, a retired inspector. We open up the floor, we open up the chat to any questions that you have on or off topic. This is when Delray usually jumps in. So Delray, if you're out there, hit us with something, Delray. You always have good questions. Did you see anything?
I just saw one that just popped up, was with X Cash in X 7370. Who do you think will be the next police commissioner?
We get this question all the time.
Yeah.
I think we answered this 2 weeks ago, or after we had Allison Esposito on for her interview. I think just the question of the next police commissioner came up because there was a lot of chatter going on about her imminent departure, which still is quite possible. And who the front runners were in the newspaper. Rodney Harrison was one of them, but he said that he would not be taking on the position unless he got the autonomy to run the department, which he didn't feel that he was going to get. And the other front runner was Issa Abbasi. And I've said from a long time ago that I thought that Issa Abbasi was the front runner.
Yeah, I personally feel Issa Abbasi is the shoe-in for it. I think I think that I personally think maybe Rodney Harrison already had his interview or whatever and didn't get it, or was pulled in and asked some questions relative to his beliefs and didn't get it. I truly believe that Issa Abbasi is the next police commissioner, and it may happen sooner than later. So we'll see. I saw a question from, I think, Delray. Yeah, there you go.
There he is. As a duty captain or duty inspector, responding, to an off-duty incident requires a change of duty status. Who really makes the final decision, you or one police plaza? The duty chief. So if there was a duty captain and they respond to an incident where they thought there was going to be a change in duty status, they would have to notify the duty inspector. I would either respond or interview over the phone, speak to the captain. If it was that serious, I would always respond in person. And then I would make a decision as the duty inspector on where we were going to go with this, whether I thought it does need to lead to a change in duty status or not after my investigation. And if that was the case, I was making a recommendation to the duty chief. So if Rob was the duty chief that night, he would be getting a phone call from operations. Most of the time, sometimes if you had the duty chief's number and you knew who the duty chief was, you can call them direct. But most duty chiefs were getting notified through operations. And then depending on the duty chief would either want to talk to the inspector and not want to talk to the captain, or some would want to talk to the captain because most of the time, the captain's going to have more information than the inspector. And shame on the inspector if he didn't have or she didn't have all the answers before you talk to the chief, because it's your job to get all the questions answered so that you can intelligently speak and make your recommendation to the chief whether there should or should not be a duty status change. And then, as the 49 always says, that police officer Jones, at 2000 hours, police officer Jones was suspended by Inspector Ronald Layson under the authority of Deputy Chief Robert Lukash. So the deputy chief is the one making it. So it's not 1PP. You don't have to get involved with 1PP. Now, on the Gurley incident, I'm sure 1PP got involved because he's so high ranking. So you would have to pretty much go, it has to be somebody of a higher rank to suspend him or modify him.
So when I was a duty captain, I had and it's funny what you say. I had the duty inspector was Inspector Higdon. I think he was from the 2-8, and I called him and talked about, the status of a police officer. He said, okay, you call the duty chief then. I said, well, Inspector, aren't you supposed to call the duty chief? He goes, I'm not calling him, you call. So when I eventually moved up through the ranks and became an inspector or deputy inspector and an inspector, I always made sure that I got all the information from the duty captain, and I called the duty chief. I didn't think it was fair that the captain had to call directly to the duty chief. And sometimes you could do a conference call. You could both be on the call. This way, if the duty chief had questions. When I was the duty chief, I accepted calls from the duty captain, but I would ask, who's the duty inspector? And sometimes they would give me a name, and I'd be like, all right, I got it. We're cool. We're cool. And I never had to confer with like one PP and say, hey, should I do this or not? No big chief ever called me and said, hey, what are you doing? We're not doing anything. I never had any influence from that. All I would do is we make the final decision, and I notify operations that this is where it's going and this is what we're doing. So, but I always like to say, you want to get all the information. And I was a big advocate, and I think maybe because of my background in ESU, was to make sure that the mental and the physical status of the officer that we're modifying or suspending or IO9ing was in the right mindset, because that was always a concern of mine, because really modification and suspension can have an adverse effect, on people. So it's a big thing. People say, "Oh, bullshit." No, it is big. It has a psychological implications. So that was always my concern. But
there's kind of a little side conversation going on about who the duty chief would be. There's a duty chief on duty 24 hours a day.
Always,
somebody's designated duty chief, but that doesn't mean that person's going to respond to or handle the call. If there's a chief working within your borough or bureau, the right thing to do is for them to handle the job and make that call. And like anybody else, if the CO is working or the XO is working and an incident happens within your command, the duty captain should not be handling that job. Even as an inspector, when anything happened and I was working, the duty captain would not handle that. I, even as an inspector, would handle any incident within my command, even if it's an off-duty incident. The captain may come in and help me out or whatever the case may be, bring the pizza, whatever. But I always took responsibility for my own area, for my own command. And I know the chiefs in my borough would never allow me to call a duty chief on an incident that happens within their patrol borough. If it's an off-duty in Long Island and we're covering Long Island, you kind of got to know your players.
Yeah.
You got, like you said, the duty captain's calling you, and then you say, who's the duty inspector? And they're like, okay, now I understand why, because that guy's a bumbling fool, or that, that's the case. And Modern Samurai, we're going to get to your super chat. You're going to get,
Wait, I want to talk about Modern Samurai. I wonder if he remembers this. I had I think it was a change of duty status when I was in the 2-3, and the CO was working, and I was the duty captain, but he was the CO. He was just the captain at the time. Well, he quickly signed out.
Oh, you get that. You definitely get that.
Yeah.
You get a phone call, and it's like, all right, something happened in the 109. Now, in the beginning of your tour, you call the borough and you get the executive coverage. Who's working and what commands, because you need to know. You don't, as a courtesy, it's like an unwritten rule. If the XO or the CO is working, you don't go in and inspect their command log and inspect their command. You might stop by and say hello if you know the executive, but you're not going there to inspect the command, because your job as duty captain to go to the commands, inspect the command log. But if somebody was working more than 3 hours into my tour, I didn't hit their command unless something happened, right? Because they kind of feel as it's kind of an insult, like, what are you doing here? I'm here. It's my shop. And then you get those calls, and you're like, wait a minute. Captain so-and-so, Inspector so-and-so is working until 2000. Oh, no, he left a little while ago. He signed out.
Yeah.
Oh, conveniently, like 5 minutes before the call came over.
I get a couple complaints about Ask the Executive, and one of them says there's no star on the top of the deputy chief.
Again, we're working with AI here. Sometimes they remove things.
All right. And the
I can only
flag,
do
that's
so- I can only do so much.
is that the city flag or the PD flag? Somebody said, I think TC saying that.
No, that's the New York State flag and the NYPD flag in the background.
All right, gotcha.
I'm trying.
All right.
My handle, my handle, how are NYPD call signs organized? And then I saw somebody actually came in and answered that the 10 call, that, you know, the 10 series. And it goes up, you know, the 20, the 1020s are past crimes, the 1030s are in progress crimes. So there's just, you know, which code is the actual crime that you're responding to.
And Reed's right. Higdon and Joy Stevens didn't want to be bothered with anything in the 2-8. So
Let me see. We have anything else?
So I think Eric's asking, why wasn't he suspended rather than modified?
Well, again, Eric, you might have got on a little bit late, but we kind of answered that because we don't know all the details. We only know what's been posted through the orders in the police department, that there actually is a disciplinary process in place, and the statement by the Haverstraw City Town Police Department. So we don't know enough. We don't know what precipitated the argument. We don't know how they came in contact with one another. We don't know who the aggressor was. We don't know what the injuries were sustained. We don't know how the injuries were sustained. We don't know the reason behind the chief removing his firearm from his waistband. We don't know the exact circumstances of how the firearm was discharged. We are hearing things in the background. We reported earlier that Sal had put out a post about rumors that he had heard. We had information that we have gotten that we're not going to put out because it's not confirmed yet. But I think you're going to see a lot more in the very near future come out about this publicly.
Yeah, I also think with the modification, it's a suspected criminality, and suspension usually is criminality. So, for a suspension, a guy gets arrested for almost anything. It's usually a suspension. But if you have the information and you're not sure, the Haverstraw might not be given everything up, and the force investigation or department might not know anything. But the safest thing to do is the firearm was involved. It was maybe accidentally discharged, or unintentionally, as we said earlier. But the modification is to me is justified at this time. So. And Mike Marino, thanks for the shout out, brother. Appreciate you. That was earlier. So.
When did the equipment section get relocated out of 1PP? When they opened up the new police academy, I believe, right? I think they.
And what a great idea! What a great idea that was, because they made it a cafeteria, and now you had if you went down to 1PP for some bullshit meeting, you could go down to cafeteria and get a Starbucks coffee, something to eat, and sit there before, because I was coming from Brooklyn, so I always left early, and I would be like, at 45 minutes to an hour early. I would go down to where the old equipment section was, and now was a cafeteria. You could sit there, have a cup of coffee before you went upstairs and attended the meeting. So I think it's a great thing. It's also during promotions, they have that open and stuff. The only disadvantage is you forget your hat for a promotion. Well, now they have the promotion at the academy, right? That was the only problem. And somebody mentioned the other day, it might have been John, I think, mentioned it, with the old patent leather shoes, and the heel would just fall off, would disintegrate.
That happened to me at a funeral. I was walking down, it's like a mile to my car, and as I'm walking, the sole of my shoe
is leaving.
is just leaving a trail behind me.
Yeah.
It happens to all of us. And then that was a good thing. That was a good point. A lot of times you could go get squared away at the equipment section if for promotions. And then Detective Nolan, I guess you jumped the gun because we just asked you a question.
Yeah. And then Mike Marino goes, Rob, so you had coffee before you get ass punched? Yeah, I always wanted to be awake for it. So yeah.
Oh,
Definitely. Yeah, it was Bass, Housing for Life, Bass patent leather shoes. Those things disintegrate those heels, man.
EMJE 272. Do you think the mayor will squash the 25th anniversary of 9/11 ceremony?
I don't dispute. I don't say it's not. I mean, I don't know if he can, but I bet he limits it somehow, some way. We'll see. I hope not.
I don't think he can. It's such a big ceremony every year. But like, you know, when they had recently the big ceremony at the police, the 9/11 memorial, he showed up and left. I don't think he's going to be a big part of it like the mayors in the past. I think he's going to make his mandatory appearance, and that's going to be that. But I don't think he's going to limit it. I don't think that he's going to try and squash it. I think it'll be the same ceremony. Sorry, I almost called it a celebration. It's just celebration of life, I guess. But the ceremony that it's been, you know, I don't know how much they're going to step it up for the 25th anniversary, but I don't think that he can or will try to squash it. I just don't think he's going to play an integral part of it at all.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely hope not. Not, you know, this 25th anniversary, you know, and for the families, I hope he doesn't do it. Doesn't make it such a political thing. However, we have seen in the past when, you know, it becomes a political dog and pony show where everybody just shows up and really isn't really for the families where really it should be. So we'll see.
All right. 2 hours and 22 minutes into it. We got over 650 people still watching. So before we wrap it up, anything else?
No, I mean, I just, you know, thank everybody again. It's in the chat. You guys are great. We appreciate all the feedback, the input, you know, trying to continue to grow our network, the Finance Unfiltered here. So please, you know, if you've, you know, friends and people, you know, like and, you know, subscribe, you know, get quick notifications on anything that comes out. I know John does a lot of videos and stuff. So there's always information being pushed out. I always say, you know, get your family members involved too, because often or not, you know, I know when I was, you know, a cop, I didn't come in and tell my parents what was going on. I didn't tell my sister, but had they been listening and listened to a podcast, they would have heard some things. And I think some of the questions would have been definitely, you know, pushed out on us. So just a quick thing though, the super chats. There was a question from Modern Samurai in the one of the super chats. So.
I'm gonna hit the super chats in a minute.
All right, Roger that.
But yeah, just you just mentioned John does a lot of videos. Go back, make sure you go check out John D. McCary on X, and he's put out videos. He talked about it today on the show, and it's going to be their main topic on Friday about the mayor's plans and attempt to delay the payments into the New York City pension funds. And two of the unions, the SBA and the PBA, have said that they sit on the police pension board and they will vote against it.
Which was a push by John, Eric, and Marlon on the podcast, right? To push the unions to step up. So they finally did. So yeah, kudos to them.
So go and check out his videos on that. They explain it, and we encourage, well, I encourage anybody and everybody, retired or active, to reach out to your union. No matter who your union is, reach out to your union, reach out to the other unions, because the pension fund is all together. It doesn't matter what union you are. If you're in the PBA, you could be reaching out to the LBA, the DEA, and the CEA to say, hey, oppose this bill because it affects all of us. You know, oppose this vote to make the amendment, or to make the, I forget what it's called, whatever, to allow the city to defer payments. Because what that does is, it's not going to affect our pension at the end of the month, but long term, it has detrimental value to the pension fund, because the money that is deferred is not put into the fund and is no longer compounding the interest, which is the basis of the solvency of the plan, of the fund. So you need to get on there.
And
Get on the
also,
phone.
Ron, that you've seen that, and John mentioned it, that once they start that it's very hard to recoup that money and bring it up to the pension where they is. And like Robert Murphy is saying, we haven't heard anything from the LBA, the CEA, or even the DEA, right? So, I mean, you need to get to your unions, because you know what? It's not a healthy thing. It's not a healthy thing for the police officers that are on the job, and it's not healthy for our, because you never know what could happen later on down the road, So
Yes. So again, check out, again, it's John D. Macari on X. And that's that. Just one more thing on a personal note before we get to the super chats. I know last month I announced that my kid's grandfather had passed away. And I appreciate the love and support that the community had sent in the chat to my kids and to their family. On that side of the family, it was my ex's father. We got unfortunate news this past week. Their grandmother passed away, Carol Caristo. And so they lost 2 grandparents in a month. So I just want to make sure that they know that they have our love and support. And also prayers and thoughts go out to Carol and Pat's children, my ex Diane, her brothers, Nikki, his wife, Lori, and I had a brain fart and forgot to mention their other son, Pat, and his wife Sabrina, as well as her other daughter Debbie. So just thoughts and prayers. They'll be heading out for a memorial service next week in her memory. So
yeah, God bless her. Rest in peace.
Another funny, wacky person in life. Loved her family. Loved animals. Was a huge animal lover. Always made sure that the strays in the neighborhood were fed and taken care of. And always had a backup when she was going away or doing something. So rest in peace, Carol, and thoughts and prayers to my kids and the family. So thank you for that moment. All right, let's move on. Super chats. Again, thank you for your input. And it is, you're not hearing me? Can you hear me, Rob?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, somebody asked if the audio was on.
No, you're on. You've been on.
Thanks we had 2 super chats today. We got our friend, the finest 25, $1.99, formerly Diecast, right? 516.
Thank you, brother.
Present for duty. Keep up the great work, Chief and Inspector. We know who you are. We thank you very much for your support of this show and the entire network. And our friend Modern Samurai, who $10 to the podcast. Ron and Rob, are we concerned about the abuse and misuse of the spot-ons by Eric on the finest Unfiltered? Apparently, there's an extremely low bar for his issuance of the spot-on and decreasing its value. Well, we really can't complain about Eric and the spot-ons because they are his. He is the originator of the spot-ons on the Finest Unfiltered network. Anything on that?
No, I just want to thank Eric for bringing us to the spot on contest. I think he did great work.
What
And,
contest?
I don't know. Now when my kids do something good, I tell them you guys are spot on. So it's just grown arms and legs. It's crazy. So everybody gets a spot on. You get a spot on. You get a spot on.
You get a spot on. Oh, thank you everybody for your comments. You know, yeah, it's tough for the kids. It's really, you know, they've been fortunate that they haven't had to deal with a lot of it in their life. So yeah, so appreciate that. But all right, so let's get to it. On Friday, John, Eric, and Marlon will be back for the Friday roundtable. What they're going to be talking about is what we just mentioned: Mondami's New York City pension robbery. His plan to try and defer payments into the pension plan. So they'll be talking about that on Friday. They'll also be talking about the Chief Gurley incident that we just spoke about today, and they'll be speaking about that and any other information or updates that come between now and then. But also go back and take a look at today's podcast. They had a really good podcast with Dr. Travis Yates, law enforcement professional, straight shooter, talked about police involved uses of force and how to avoid them. And he has training and that's involved in that. That's really realistic. And he's a real straight shooter. So go back and check out that show from today on the rebroadcasts. Then they'll be back again on Monday to continue on with anything that's new and current in the headlines for policing and local politics. Tuesday, 7:05, we got the 10-4 Tavern with Tommy Joyce and Pete Viselli. Every Tuesday, 7:05, continuously bringing on great guests from inside the NYPD, outside the NYPD, federal law enforcement. Last night, they had Jimmy Sheehan. He's got 30-plus years. He's retired, Paramus, New Jersey, acting chief. He was also a union leader. So he had such a perspective from both sides of it, from the union leadership to actual police leadership. Another straight shooter. So go back, take a look at that on the rewind, and then they'll be back again next Tuesday at 7:05. Not sure exactly who they have coming on. We'll be back next Wednesday at 5:05 p.m.
Hey, I got one thing before you cut us off. One thing, I'm kind of happy that guy Brian O'Hara from where's he from?
Minnesota,
Minneapolis, right? Minnesota. I'm glad he got fired. Screwed up. He's a friggin' spineless piece of crap. So I'm glad he got fired. That's all I gotta say about that. Go back to Jersey. That's where he's from. He was commuting every friggin' day, retard. So I'm glad they're finally stepping up. But I think he was impeding the investigation or whatever. I don't know. But good. I'm glad you're fired. Come on, why don't you come on our show? We can discuss it.
I thought we were gone.
Yeah.
Just when we thought we were gone, we got pulled back in.
I just remembered that. I was like,
yeah. He was asked to leave by the mayor, who was asked he was kissing, and but he's in line. IACP, PERF, they'll find him another job. He'll bounce back. He'll bounce back.
Yeah.
So,
Or they'll have him in perf talking to everybody how to be a great leader. So, but yeah, good luck with that.
all right. We'll be back next Wednesday at 5:05 p.m. Until then, everybody be safe out there. Thanks for tuning in.
Spot on.